Hi, my name is Todd Durgan. I am going to introduce you to the universal pattern and its uses for application in teaching and practicing proper angles and lines of motion and application. When we look at the universal pattern in its traditional glory, as you can see to the right of me, we see all of the shapes: the diamond, the heart, the outside lines, what represents the outer perimeter, the inner perimeter, perimeter defense, whatever you want to call it. We have the cross, the multiplication, all of those things that are in there. If you look at the universal pattern with the numbers overlaid, again, as you see to the right of me, you can see the call out for the 3, the 9, the 6, the 1, okay, and then the 6 and the 9 on the bottom. What you don't see is the 2 that will be here, okay, on the side, and you don't see the 4, as you can now see on this new graphic, the 7, and again the 1, okay, and then this is the number 2 line. Whereas here, it's the number 3 line, okay? So the first 3 planes in the universal pattern, the 1, the 2, and the 3, are actually the 3 Masterkey planes. If we look at the medical depiction, and I talk about this, and I illustrated this in my book, and also in my Ken posters, some items that I have for sale on KempoGuy.com, you'll see advertisements. Anyway, I break it down so that it's easy to understand where and how where they come from and how to use them, or how to understand which number is which, okay, through the understanding of the first 3 Masterkey planes, 1, 2, and 3. Enough of that. Okay, so what's the purpose? The purpose is it leads us to a greater understanding and application of proper motion. Now you say proper motion. Proper motion meaning the ideal line or path relative to my opponent and their position or angle in the world, okay? Now that's important because Mr. Parker talks about angles of incidence, angle of entry, all of these different angles, angles of departure, yada, 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 okay? And that angle of incidence is the one that we want to talk about, because diagonal motion has a greater cancellation and effect on our opponent anytime we employ it on them. Okay, meaning, basically, if I'm doing delayed sword, for example, and I drop back with my inward block, I'm moving, if you could see from above, I'm moving diagonally on a number 5 plane. Or, excuse me, on a number 5 plane in a number 5 direction, okay? You can't see that. I'll show this that graphic right here. So this is an overhead view of the universal pattern and what the planes are relative to the overhead, which would be 5, 8, again, number 3, okay, in that direction, okay? You don't see number 1 now. You see number 2, okay? And then you see the 5 behind me on this side and the 8 behind me on this side, or in this depiction here. Think of this as front leading down or front leading up. Okay, so if I'm doing delayed sword, I drop back here, okay, and I'm in my neutral bow. I draw, okay, this block happens on a number 5 plane. It's diagonal to the incoming grab, punch, whatever it is, okay? It's diagonal to that, so it has a greater effect or cancellation, or greater retardation. It retards that incoming motion, as if we want to say that. Okay, so from this point, now as I draw back to my cat stance, my transitional cat stance, and I'm not telling you how to execute the technique, I'm telling you how to utilize the universal pattern in a very simplistic way to teach and or realize proper lines of and actions of motion. Okay, so I drop back to my cat, I execute my front kick. That front kick actually travels on a number 3 plane. Okay, it's this center universal pattern. It's this center plane that dissects me, okay? And again, I have graphics on the posters and in my first book, okay? So I drop, draw, kick. Now, if you notice, my inward block simply drops outward, downward, diagonally and into them, okay? This executes or travels now on a number 9 plane, diagonal to their vertical motion, or diagonal to the number 3 plane, the number 3 line. So they grab, I drop, kick, drop, okay? And I'm going to employ gravitational marriage and all of that stuff with it, okay? The more important thing is to realize and recognize that that diagonal motion creates a proper angle of incidence to the neck and the shoulder line, okay? Where we have this 45-degree angle. So you can look at the 3 plane or the 3 line and the number 1 line as the neck and the shoulder, and then that number 9 is the perfect 45 or diagonal to that and creates the proper angle of incidence. Okay, so all that being said, we want to try to relate these numbers, okay, or at least in FACEIT combatives, the system that I've put together and am teaching. We want to start that journey understanding and utilizing those numbers and the universal pattern and those planes from the very beginning, okay? FACEIT combatives is an immersion learning system. So we start that from the very beginning, and as we move through, as you see later on in some later videos that I'm doing and have done, it's also incorporated in the weapons, okay, and in other elements that we're going to utilize, where we utilize those same numbers instead of having to learn some foreign system and their numbering system. We can maintain the same numbers and the same perspective, okay, and the same relative positions, angles, and so forth throughout our entire career, both in learning and in teaching. I hope that this has been informative and has helped gain a tiny little more understanding of the universal pattern and its uses. And its many, many uses, although I've only shown you a couple. It has a great application to the martial arts in understanding and applying. Thank you for your time. Again, my name is Todd Durgan, FACEIT Combatives creator. Thank you.